Hello, Dallas. It's that time again. It's time to wake up and get wealthy. I am Terri Arends, Group Fitness and Wellness Director with the Arends Family JCC. And April is Get Your Dog Active Month, Pet Your Dog, Hug Your Dog. And we are here with Rachael Jacob,
Hi.
who is a dog trainer. And we're just going to get a little smarter when it comes to dog training. So let's get at it.
Awesome.
Rachael, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me
Today.
I appreciate it. This is awesome.
I love it. I love it. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is basically just like the fitness industry and a lot of the other industries out there. When you compare the fitness industry with like the dog training industry, it seems like that the dog training industry is a little unregulated when it comes to certifications regarding dog training.
Right.
So do you feel like that there are some really good certifications out there, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So unfortunately, the dog training industry can be quite unregulated. So it's really important to make sure that when you do hire a trainer, that you do a little bit of work and see if they have what's called a CPDT, which is a certification that most generalized certified pure professional dog trainers will have. It's a certification for a professional dog training certification. There's a whole process to go through, whether they're knowledge assessed or knowledge skilled. They can go through either of those. Those are just to certify that they have the knowledge and the skills to be a practicing professional dog trainer, which is one of the certifications that I'm working on. You have to log in a lot of hours to get that, so it takes a little time. It can be quite unregulated and hard to find somebody who doesn't have a certification, actually. So if you do find someone who does not have a certification, maybe think twice about hiring that person, although they can be quite good or probably talented. For your own personal sake, I would recommend getting someone who has that, at least that license. There are quite a few others on top of that, more advanced degrees that you can get. Those are also great as well. A lot of sport dog trainers or a lot of fit dog trainers, AKC trainers will be AKC assessed, which AKC is American Kennel Club, which is one of the certifications that I currently have.
Nice.
You can get one of those. Those take a little less time, but they're still equally valuable. So just be careful when you're looking for a dog trainer that they do at least have some base certifications, either a CPDT, Certified Professional Dog Trainer, or an AKC certification are good, simple ones to start off with, unless they're much further advanced. But yeah.
Okay, that sounds great. I know, like I'm a fan of just AKC. I have a dog. I'm a dog owner, dog mom. I'm a proud, awesome mom. And my dog does a lot of different AKC performance events. So I'm familiar with that. So that's really good. And you said that second one was what?
It's called CPDT.
And that's
so Certified Professional Dog Trainer and Certification.
Okay.
And they can either be a CPDT KA, which means they're knowledge assessed. They've taken a written exam to prove that they have the knowledge mentally and some physical submissions like pictures and videos. And then they can also have a KS CPDT, which is knowledge skilled test, which means that you're tested live in front of other judges to see what you know. And to make sure that you know a long laundry list of different ways to train dogs.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. I think that that's really helpful for our viewers. And, you know, that you just don't want to get up you don't want to just hire anyone. So like somebody that just wakes up and says, hey, I'm going to be a dog trainer today. Yeah. So definitely look and do your homework.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get down to the basics here a little bit in regards to actual dog training. You had mentioned, I think we talked about one day at the daycare where Mulligan goes, you mentioned a couple different types of options that are out there for training.
Sure.
And I guess that also goes hand in hand with your philosophies. So why don't you share just a little bit with our viewers on those two particular types of trainings and your philosophy?
Sure. There are quite a few different methods and techniques to training dogs. Some of my personal favorites are being positive only, which means that you're adding in a lot of encouragement and a lot of rewards to encourage dogs to want to learn and to encourage them to try something new. Maybe they haven't learned before. There's also one of my second favorite methods is a balance training method, which means for particular dogs, they may need a little balance in between adding encouragement and taking away something that encourages a bad behavior. There are also broader spectrums to describe a lot of those methods, which they tend to take a lot of psychology, and human psychology and dog psychology are very similar. So hearing the words positive only, a lot of people tend to think, oh, that means you're just really positive, but it's less emotion and more literal. So positive means that you're adding something in to encourage the dog to want to do something, or you're adding something in to discourage a behavior.
So like a
positive
treat
can be good and bad.
Like
positive,
for example, a treat.
Yes. So for example, a treat.
How do I take that away and still be positive? But go ahead.
Sure. So if I wanted you to give me a high five and you didn't know how to give a high five, and I said, put your hand up and you go like this, there you go. And then I'm going to reach in and give you a treat so that you want to do it again. Good job.
Okay.
And then I reach my hand up. You did it again all by yourself this time. You get another treat.
Awesome.
There you go. And so I'm adding something in to encourage you to want to do this behavior, right? So we're going to lean in and we're going to give a high five. Now, if I lean in and I don't want you to give me a high five, I'm not going to give you that treat. So I'm going to take that treat away from you. Maybe I want something else this time. What else? What else would I
twirl?
What if I go from here to here? I'm not asking for a high five.
But you're asking for a handshake?
Yes. And now I'm going to go back and add that treat in.
I'm good at this.
So now I'm going to add that treat in. So now you know 2 skills. What's this one? High five, right? Get a treat. I want you to keep doing the high five. So I'm going to add something in to encourage you. But now if I go like this and you reach in for a high five, I'm not going to give a treat. So I'm taking that treat away to discourage the high five behavior, right?
Oh, okay.
But if I go back in and you don't do the high five and you do the handshake, I'm going to say, oh, yes, there you go. There's a treat for that
another
one.
Treat.
Good job.
This is great.
So there's 2 versions of positive training. You can add something in to encourage a behavior. You can also add something in to discourage a behavior, which would be adding in something like no, or pressure on the leash to discourage them from pulling, or a lot of different things. You can also take something away, which would be negative reinforcement. You can take something away to discourage or encourage a behavior. So I could take that treat away to encourage you to do a different behavior, right? Which is kind of a little bit of what we did there. So having positive reinforcement and then negative reinforcement, those can create a balance, and that can create a balanced method of training, depending on what the dog is struggling with. There's also a couple of other spectrums of balance, positive and negative too.
I'm going to give you an example, or I mean, something that my dog,
Let's go.
Being selfish here.
Critical
My
thinking.
dog is sometimes suffering with, and that would be in our condo, our balcony glass door. We'll see is very territorial, and we'll see a dog walking by. So how do you deter him? Like I've done, I think the positive, get him away from the situation, over to another part of the condo, and then have him sit and give him a treat. Is there another way to do that I'm not always giving him treats, because that's the only way that he will stop that behavior?
Sure. So you're almost right. So it's a good thing to practice what you're already doing and to keep doing that. However, I would say adjust it just a smidge.
And how's that?
And the timing needs to be very, very particular. So when you give him a treat, it needs to be very specific. And I can help you show you kind of how to do that. But in essence, what you're going to do is you can take a clicker, which this is a clicker. There's a little box clicker. It's quite loud, like that. Every time that he looks out the window and someone, either with a dog or without, someone comes along the sidewalk, click, and offer him a treat. So the second that he sees something, whether it's a person or especially a person with a dog, and hopefully it's not just a dog by itself, but
every once in a while that happens.
Every now and then, unfortunately, it happens. Click. That should get his attention, the loud click. and then hand him a treat. So that he's learning this means I get a treat when someone or something is present. And then after a while, you have to practice for quite some time and really drill that habit into his mind.
Right.
That every time you see someone and I click and I give you a treat, I want you to look at me instead of barking at that person. Then that's the positive only. That's adding something in to encourage him to feel more positive. Because then you're getting into an emotional standpoint of why he feels a certain way.
So I've got a question though.
Sure.
Does that go on forever?
No, it doesn't go on forever. It will go on for a long time because you're creating more habits. It's almost like when you teach someone who's never exercised before, they have to get into the habit of wanting to exercise and then doing specific exercises. And you know a little bit more about that than I do. But you have to get started on the habit first of doing the exercise. Then it will become much more fluid and more natural for them to respond that way.
Okay.
So the exercise will get easier and easier, and this will get easier for him to behave a certain way the more that you practice that behavior. So it's a little bit of a balanced method in a way, because then you're going to start from positive only and adding something in so that he starts to feel more positive when he sees or hears dogs and people walking past the balcony window. Then you're going to, once he knows that he should look at you and get a treat when he hears that clicker, then you're going to add in a deterrent so that when he on purpose goes and barks at that person or that dog and doesn't do what he was taught to do, you have to make sure that he absolutely knows to do the correct thing before you correct him on doing the wrong thing. So when he does the wrong thing, then you would add in a correction and say, you did that wrong. And it can be as simple as saying, or, hey, no, we don't do that. Remember, we click and then we treat. We get a treat when we look at people, but you have to look at me. You know to look at me. Now I'm just going to correct you when you do it wrong. So then you're adding a little bit more balance so that you can proof that down the road. So it gets easier and easier and easier for him to think that way and go straight to that pattern of thinking, oh, people, dogs equals food. I like food. I like people and dogs. So it'll be a less emotional response later down the road. But it's a little bit of a time-consuming process.
So an adult dog, they say, teach a dog new tricks. Is it, starting with a puppy versus an adult dog? So can an adult dog reform? With just this method?
For sure. You could teach an old dog new tricks.
Okay.
Sometimes you do have to lean on what they're physically capable of or mentally capable of if they're deaf or they have a bad leg, and then you kind of have to judge what they literally can and can't do. But yeah, you can absolutely teach an old dog new tricks.
Well, that's good to know. That is really
I even
good
have
to
a
know.
little book here of 101 dog tricks that you can create. This is not my book. This is just a fun book to read. But there's lots of different cutesy little tricks in here, and you can teach them all sorts of funny little things. So these are good enrichment activities for your dogs to learn. Even old dogs can learn new tricks.
So when I call you up and hire you as a trainer, a dog trainer, do you have different philosophies for different breeds, or is it just across the board, everything the same?
I wouldn't say a different philosophy for different breeds, but you do have to understand what breeds have different tendencies. So certain breeds like pit bulls and Rottweilers and Labs are going to have a higher energy. They may take a lot more training, or they may take a lot more exercise during their training. So versus, a Chihuahua or, a Cavalier, they're a little bit lower than that type of energy, or even an American Bulldog. They're a little bit lower energy in comparison to a Lab. So you just kind of have to judge what generally those breeds' tendencies are and flow with that, and then meet the dog where they are. So you may have a really high energy Chihuahua. They can be high energy sometimes. Their breed tendencies are a little bit more towards the nervous side though. So yes and no on that one.
Okay, and so do you think it's for those high energy dogs? You want them to have their exercise, you want them to have their long walks during the day, through the course of the day, 2 or 3 times a day. But do you feel also that, for example, you'd mentioned AKC, well, they have a lot of performance activities and events. Is that something for those, just only for those high energy dogs, or could a dog that has a lower energy also participate in some of those activities?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Any dog can participate in most of the AKC activities. There are ones that are a little bit more sports specific.
Can you
So
name some of those?
introducing, say, a greyhound or an Italian hound to cat racing,
The
or
fast cats.
the fast
Yeah.
cat racing. Those are really good fits for that game. However, maybe a bloodhound would be a whole lot slower, or a bulldog would be a lot slower on those races. So will they excel? Not necessarily, but it's good to get them out and enrich their life and try something new, even though they may not be the best at it. Most of those types of sports are aimed at more breed-specific traits, but a lot of the AKC practicing facilities or game sports facilities, they'll accept anyone, depending on the behavioral tendencies, what you're wanting to learn.
Yeah, well, my dog Mulligan, he participates in fast cats, and proud mom here, he runs it in 9.0 seconds.
That's really good.
He's faster than Zeke Elliott. But anyways, with that being said, but then when that greyhound gets up at the start point, and by the way, a fast cat is a 100-yard dash, one dog at a time in a fenced-in area, and they're chasing a lure line.
Yeah.
So when that greyhound gets up there, they're doing it in half the time.
Yep. They're very fast.
So, yeah. So
they're very sweet dogs, but they're very fast.
Yes.
But yeah, a lot of dogs can participate.
Yeah.
Just depends on what you're wanting to learn.
Cool. That's great. I see you have a bunch of different items here, some different toys. Do you want to go through it and explain what would be, you know, like what this is basically for, and explain while you're...
Sure. So this is just a tug toy or a bite toy, chew toy. It has a very soft squeaker. It's usually used for dogs who have higher tendencies to tear things apart or to chew things. These are really tough kind of toys. They're actually made out of old retired firehouse hose.
Oh,
so
wow.
The fire hoses that they use, sometimes they recycle them and they make dog toys out of them.
Recycled. Awesome.
But yeah, these are really good. They're also really good for teaching your dog when you're wanting them to participate in bite sports, which a lot of AKC facilities will teach bite sporting. They can teach on younger dogs, puppies who have this type of size mouth, to grab and bite onto something that's not going to tear apart like a plush toy would. These are really good. There's more specific bite toys too. So this is a good starter one though.
Oh, okay. So this is like really tough. And you think that even an Australian Shepherd won't like destroy this in 5 seconds?
Oh, eventually, but it'll take a little bit more time.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go out and get one of these. But,
yeah, you can get them at a lot of different stores.
Yeah,
a lot of different.
And so, what is this all about?
Sure. So this is just a lure tug toy. So it's got a nice little rubber bone on the end. It's got some little bumps and ridges to help massage the gums, which makes it feel good, encourages them to chew. You can also take this, make sure it's tight. You can drag it along the floor, and you can hold the other end and the dog can chase it, almost like a big cat toy, but for dogs. So these are really good for dogs who have a prey drive, which means they want to chase and hunt after something. These are really good to encourage that behavior, kind of burn some energy. It's also lots of fun for dogs who like to jump on people a lot. So instead of them focusing on what's in your hand or holding a tug toy in your hand and them jumping on you and playing tug, if you don't want that and you do want them off of you a little bit more, you can take something like this, toss it on the ground, and that encourages them to follow it along on the ground, thus keeping their feet on the ground. So they'll jump on you a little bit less and burn a little bit more energy. These are really good for that. There's a lot of varieties of these types of toys. There's even one called a flirt pole, which sounds interesting, but you can get those on Amazon or at a lot of different pet stores. And it's essentially just a giant cat toy, but it's got more of a pole structure and it dangles out a little bit more like a fishing pole.
Oh, so it's just a structure, solid structure.
Well, it's like a pole, and then it's got this attached to the ends or something similar to this, and you can swing it around almost like a fishing pole with a lure on the end.
Oh, okay.
Or a giant cat toy. But these are really good entertainment for dogs who like to chase things or like to jump on you. So these are a lot of fun. But yeah, so that's what this is.
Great. And you have this like super long leash. I can't even imagine my area walking with like a super long leash. So what do you do with this?
Sure. So these are long lines. Long leashes, long lines, we use these a lot for teaching your dog to come when called, or what's called recall. So what we'll do is we'll unravel it, we'll clip the dog's leash or harness into here, and then we'll hold on to the end, which is somewhere way down in here. There we go. Hold on to the end, let the dog go all the way to the end to explore. When they sniff and when they, kind of find the ground a little interesting, then you can start to call them back to you, but they're still attached on a leash, even though they can have a little bit more leniency, a little bit more freedom without actually being off the leash. Then you can teach them to come back to you when you call. And if they don't, you're at least still attached on the leash, and you can start to reel them back in and say, okay, yep, there we are, right back home.
I think that recall is one of the most important type
Absolutely.
of activities that you can do together with your dog, just for those moments of like maybe danger or we worked a lot with recall, and it was very helpful just in case there's ever that moment of emergency.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've seen a lot of dogs get away from their owner and they get really scared around the cars and the neighborhood and stuff. Maybe they haven't explored yet, or they just get really interested in all the new freedom that they have. And then they don't want to come to you when you say, come here, you better get over here. They don't really like that. So teaching them a positive reinforcement way to come back to you and that it's rewarding and fun is extremely important. And one of the first things that I teach when it comes to teaching recall or basic manners is a really good recall. So it's very, very, very important. If you learn nothing with your dog or you don't do any training, teach them to come when called. And whatever emergency case happens and you need them to come back to you and they're not on a leash, they'll still listen to at least that.
Nice.
But it's always good to have that as an emergency.
Absolutely. I've had to use recall a couple times. So there was I thought it was a fenced in area, but of course the Australian Shepherd will find that one little space to slide through. And then, so I was like, hey, I'm going to the car, and I called his name and turned my back and ran the other way, and he came running.
Good.
So,
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So that's
important to practice that.
Yeah, it's very important.
Yeah.
And then I see okay, so you have this.
Yeah, that's a treat pouch.
Treat pouch. All right. So do you use this 24/7? Do you recommend
no,
use it
not
all
necessarily.
the time, or have that pouch on, put your phone in there, or and the treats?
I use this a lot when I'm training, so I don't have to have treats in my pockets, because I will put my clothes in the washer with treats in them. So it's not so fun to get them out of the washer when they've had dog food or dog treats in them.
Sure, I get that.
This is a simple way to keep that from happening. This is just a treat pouch. So you can clip it on, clip it around your waist, and then it kind of folds and holds its structure and then collapses in. You can get these in like Velcro or black and blue and all sorts of different styles. They even have ones that clip onto your leg instead of your hip. So they can get really fancy, but it's an easy way to keep all your treats and all your food for rewards in one spot. I use these a lot, specifically when I'm training, or if I just want to have my dog out and relaxed. I'm still going to use a treat pouch so that I can just dip in and give her a treat for staying nice and calm and relaxing.
Oh, nice.
So yeah.
Nice.
These are really easy. You can also slip your phone into there and your keys or something if you need to.
Yeah, great.
Definitely recommend having a treat pouch on you, though, when you're training.
That makes total sense. And also it keeps your dog safe. I mean, just to have that positive reinforcement.
Absolutely. Yeah. It helps them want to engage with you more when you have something that they really like. Think of it like if you really like your job and you get paid at your job, they might give you a bonus, and that might encourage you to like your job a whole lot more. Or they might throw a pizza party, or they might add something in to encourage you to engage with work more, right? So this is kind of what a treat and a treat pouch will do for your dog. Having really good high quality treats or even some good kibble that they really like encourages them to engage with you a lot.
So what do you suggest would be high quality versus just a general treat, like a lower quality treat? Is there something that you would recommend?
Sure. So I have here, this is my dog's basic kibble. She really likes this a lot. It's salmon flavored, so it stinks a lot, which dogs really like. The stinkier the better. They love that. I also have mixed in, I make like almost like a trail mix in my treat pouch.
Oh, wow.
But I have these little cubes. These are
Mhm.
little, I think these are salmon or they're beef. I forget which one. I have both. But these are little salmon cubes. These are a lot higher value. They're stinkier and they're a lot lighter. She really likes those. She also really likes turkey. So having something high value such as fresh food or fresh meats are generally going to be quite high in value, such as deli meats, chicken, shredded chicken, beef, something of that nature. Guarantee that your dog can eat those things on a diet basis. Those are going to be a bigger paycheck to your dog. Think of it like a really high salary versus a really low salary. Most are going to want the really high salary, but in order to get the really high salary, the really high value treat, you've got to do whatever's asked of you. Then you're going to get paid really well with a piece of chicken or a piece of turkey or, you know, the really high stinky salmon deep fried. I almost said deep fried. Freeze dried treats. Yeah, those are really, no deep fried, no deep fried. Freeze dried treats.
Fitness.
Those are really good. Yes. Those are really, really high value versus lower value would be basic kibble. Those are really low value, or to some dogs, that's really high value. So it kind of depends on what the dog views as high and low, but overall on a general basis, lower value, basic kibble, higher value, real meat. Those are really good options. And then the in-between would be more of like the freeze-dried options or the biscuit bones. Those are good medium value. So if you're really having a hard time and you really need your dog to focus, get a high value, high salary treat. Those will bring their attention most of the time, depending on the dog. But those are a really good option to choose.
And do you think, like, also as far as with your training, you're outside, you're walking with now the mix. Do you feel like that the high value versus the lower value treats would be beneficial if there's, 4 dogs coming your way? Is it better to just keep walking or stop the dog first and give them the treat and give them the high value treat so that they stay calm? Or how does that work, like in a real situation? Because I have tons of dogs in my neighborhood, and I think everybody in my dog owns it. I mean, everyone in my neighborhood owns a dog. So how do you determine, is it a high value treat at this moment or a low value treat?
Depending on the level of distraction and the dog's ability to focus on you. So what they have a hard time with, you may not necessarily have a hard time with. You may not be bothered by other dogs walking past you, and your dog may be really bothered by that. So that's really, really hard for them. They're going to need a higher value treat in order to get through that very difficult moment for them. Or for some dogs, walking by a car. Cars can be very distracting, or traffic noises can be very, very difficult for some dogs and some breeds in particular. That can be difficult. Or paying them with a higher value treat in those situations can help encourage them a lot more than a lower value. The lower value, it's not worth it. It's almost like taking a job if they're only going to pay you $1, right? That may not be helpful to you. And the level of difficulty of that job is exceeding the amount that you're getting paid. So think of it in that type of way. Versus if I gave you $1,000 to do a really bad job or kind of a not so fun job, such as a lot of people don't like bugs. Like if there was a bug on the table and I said, take care of the bug, and you're like, oh no, I don't like bugs. Well, I'll give you $1,000 if you take care of that little bug. You might think differently about doing that job, right? So having a higher value during those times will help. Also, it tends to add more stress when we make them sit in that moment. So if you're adding on a sit or a down and they're not mentally prepared to emotionally overcome that moment, then that will make it more difficult for them to mentally overcome that moment and physically overcome that moment.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Movement, just like with people, and you may be able to speak on this too, movement can alleviate stress and bring your cortisol levels down. It's the same with dogs. So it will alleviate stress when you're moving and getting more distance away if you can. It's dependent on the layout and where you are in your environment. If you can get further away, add some distance away from that really difficult item, person, place, or thing that they're struggling with. Start moving with your dog, either asking them to do cool moves and tricks, like a rollover is a good move, or just keep walking if you just want to keep it simple, while adding in that high value treat as they're walking alongside of you. So it's a little combination. You kind of have to teach yourself how to do those moves. But yeah, to answer your question, add movement, add some distance, and some really high value treats.
That makes perfect sense. Oh my gosh, that is really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we're very similar to them.
Yeah, very similar to what we would do in to alleviate some stress, like go work out, or take a moment of just finding you. And
even massages for your dogs, they build up a lot of tension in their jaws and their along their spine, so their back, they build up a lot of tension there. So even like when you pet them, like nice and slow massages, that tends to lower stress too, just like massages lower your stress.
Exactly. Wow.
But
so similar. That is great.
We are very similar. I think we're more similar than most people think.
I think so. So do you have anything else that you'd like to share or offer? And we were talking about doing a dog manners class here at the J coming up. So do you have any other takeaways from today you'd like to add?
Sure. Being calm with your dog is also a really important trait to teach your dog. It can become a habit and it can become a command. So just like we were talking about with recall, it's super, super important to teach your dog recall. It's also very important to think about how to teach your dog how to be and to be calm. So rather than be excited or aroused or maybe too high energy, depending on the situation, teaching them to be calm is also really important. And something that's a little underestimated is teaching them to relax.
Okay. And I think that I know your dog will pick up on how you are. So if you are relaxed and calm in that certain situation, then your dog will pick up on that and also remain more relaxed and calm.
It's very true. It's very true. The more calm that you are, such as if you start pulling and tugging on the leash when you see a dog, then they're going to feel that tension from your end of the leash, and then they're going to apply that tension into a reaction on their end of the leash. It can also, in the opposite type of emotion, when you're not tense, when you are very calm and you want your dog to get excited and you're sitting here, hey, Fluffy, you're very calm, and they're going to be much more calm, but maybe you want them to be excited. Hey, come on, sweet girl, let's go. Good job. That'll encourage them depending on how you are. So if you're at a point in your life or at a point in your internal growth to where you can focus on yourself and say, okay, am I in a good position to teach my dog the thing that I want them to learn? Or am I maybe having a bad day, or I'm angry, or I'm upset? Kind of check in with yourself and align yourself up before you start trying to ask things of your dog, because they're going to act as a mirror to who you are and how you're feeling that day too. Wow. There's actually a really good book that I read. It's called Your Dog is Your Mirror, and it talks a lot about that. Reflecting who you are into your dog and your dog reflecting you back. So those are really important things to consider when you start to train your dog is, what do I want? What are my abilities, even day to day, to say, okay, I've had a really bad day today. Training my dog is not going to come out quite right if I do it out of anger or when I'm upset. So you know what? We're going to work together on being calm, and that can be our training moment. We're just going to sit and relax and learn to relax. And I'll give you a treat when you relax really well, and maybe I'll get myself a treat too when I relax really well.
All right. Well, Rachel, that really makes sense, and I love that whole mirror image. I think that is a great thing, a good takeaway for our viewers to really think about when they are with their dog. If their dog is going to mirror them. So I really thank you for coming on today.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
This is an honor. Thank you.
Yes, and folks at home, remember, always wake up and get wealthy. I'm Terri Arends. Until next time, we'll see you soon. Have a great week. Thank you.